Over the past decade, Professor David Hargreaves has championed change in education.
The world is changing outside. We demand more from our schools, and to get more out of our students, we need to have different schools.
Fundamental to his work with the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust is how best to engage the leadership potential of both young teachers and pupils. He believes those who grew up with the internet, known as Generation Y, are ideally equipped to help lead schools in the 21st century. In this programme, we will see how this generation demands less hierarchy and more participation, less passive learning and more interaction.
The ideas are coming from the students, not the teachers. We're not being given ideas and say, would you like to get on with this project? We're coming up with the projects, and so hence we're getting what we want out of our education.
At home, their world involves Twitter, the web and social networking. At school, it is often the younger teachers who are best placed to incorporate this interactive world into classroom learning.
Today we're going to be looking at how Facebook could be used in education and how it links to what we've learnt about in sociology already.
As a reward, some young teachers may hope that their career progression reflects their range of technological skills.
Senior leaders of the future are going to need to appreciate and recognise the fact that younger teachers are putting in this extra effort and want to see results for it in terms of career progression.
I think the challenge for school leaders is, how do you turn to the digital natives, most of whom are students or younger members of staff, and empower them to do the innovation which can help to transform the school.
Digital natives, of course, include most teachers under 30. They're happy to earn their pay packets partly by casting an expert eye over their pupils' supposed mastery of new technology.
A lot of the kids have ICT skills coming into the schools, but they're the wrong ones. They can already work the internet, they can do emails. You get a kid in year 11 doing coursework and he's asking you something like, how do I underline this? How do I put it in the middle? And you're thinking that's got to be the most basic thing. You say, go on the internet, find me this. They'll do it that quick, but the basic ICT skills, they don't have them.
Crucially, young teachers also understand that new technology, such as the so-called Web 2.0, is about participation rather than simply passive consumption.
What nowadays is called Web 1.0 is the web that most adults are familiar with. It's something you surf, you go from website and web page to another. You do so very passively, nothing you do changes anything on the web. Now, Web 2.0 is the kind of technical term that's given to the development of things like Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Wikipedia, where you can actually interact with other people or with the web pages and change the thing.
An analogy would be the first internet is sitting at the back of a rock concert. Web 2.0 is being up on stage playing guitar with your favourite band.
Well, they might be in class rather than at a rock concert, but pupils at Connaught School in Waltham Forest often use Web 2.0 to combine entertainment and education through a virtual learning tool known as Fronter.
What we've seen today is 5 girls from my Year 10 English class trying to complete their media coursework and using the online resources in Fronter, which is a virtual learning platform, and seeing how they can access resources, how they've got direct links to clippage from YouTube, how they have abilities to enter into discussions with each other and with the teacher.
Part of our coursework does involve explaining an actual scene. She's posted YouTube videos on the actual forum, so we don't have to actually go onto the site and search them ourselves when they're already there for us.
They can work quite independently now. They can go and check things online rather than coming to me every few seconds with a problem.
There's also comments which tell us what we actually have to look out for, so that's really helpful.
If one pupil's asking a question and you answer that and they can all see it online, it saves answering billions of pupils independently, so it is actually quite time-saving.
For example, here, a student has asked the question how long a certain section has to be, and Ms. Burton can reply to that, or other students can reply to that as well.
I prefer it actually on the computer because I don't have to keep asking my teacher different questions when I can just go on the computer, click a button and it's there right in front of me.
Using web skills in class that a pupil may well have developed through home activities allows a technically savvy Generation Y teacher to bridge the potential divide between the two worlds.
One of the really big dangers facing our schools is that the world of Web 2.0 is left within the private life of students that they enjoy outside the school. It's a secret from the school. And that within the school, the staff take the view that these new technologies are full of dangers, of which there undoubtedly are some, and therefore the thing is to ban them and keep them well away from education.
You cannot expect a child who has access to all this in their spare time to come into the classroom and be satisfied and stimulated by a piece of paper and a pen. It is ridiculous. Their minds are working at a much faster rate than ours would. They've got constant stimulation from lots of different sources, and you have to be very aware of that as a teacher.
Meeting the challenge of exploiting new technologies for educational purposes is 24-year-old historian Andrew Livingston, who encourages his sociology students to incorporate their love of social networking sites into their learning.
Today we're going to be looking at how Facebook could be used in education.
Facebook is really popular, and it's like something like social and like seen as like something you do outside of school. But when you're like putting it with school, because it's popular, it will be like more. It will help people with the education more.
What about events? They haven't done that.
We can use it to hand in coursework or something.
What, you post on the wall, for example?
Yeah.
Okay.
We post a link on the wall to our coursework page, and then it becomes easier to hand it in and check it and then
Okay, and of course, yeah, and then it would mean that you can't say, oh, well, I've lost a bit of paper because it isn't a bit of paper. Okay, it would be submitted online. Okay, yeah, certainly that would be one way that you could do it, definitely. What about Facebook chat? How could that be used?
If the teacher's online, then you could ask the teacher for help.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So if Facebook was allowed in school rather than being banned in school, then potentially the teacher could be discussing at lunchtime with you as you're typing up your coursework. You might have a question and you just pop the question rather than having to go and find the teacher in the room. Yeah, certainly, that would definitely be a good idea. Some of the students surprised me with some of the creativity of their ideas, such as having a homework inbox. Some students who perhaps aren't as enthusiastic about writing homework on bits of paper all of a sudden seem quite enthused by the idea of being able to log on to Facebook, write up their answers and be able to submit it that way. So certainly, yeah, I was surprised with some of the enthusiasm, I have to say.
Having arranged to meet through Facebook in this pub, how does our Generation Y panel think social networking sites should be used in schools?
Would you see anything wrong with being a Facebook friend or contact with a student at the school that you're currently working at that's a student at the school at the time?
I wouldn't accept a student as a friend on Facebook, never. Not until they were much older at uni, whatever.
And you know I'm teaching them. The sort of relationship with them where they understand, you know, the difference between...
Facebook is definitely that line.
If they can get on your Facebook, then they can see photos of you doing things which you'd tell them not to do, like weekend activities.
When I first started teaching, I think there was more of that traditional idea where they were almost surprised if they bumped into you over the weekend doing your shopping or being out in the real world. I think they assumed that you were literally switched off at 3:30 and wheeled into a cupboard, whereas now I think they do actually sort of, perhaps it's those sort of things that have led to them realising that you are actually sort of more of a normal human being who does have something to do outside of the hours that you're at work.
Lots of kids put their music on MySpace and stuff, and they say, oh, go onto my MySpace and listen to this track that I've uploaded. You can do that kind of stuff. I think MySpace is much less personal than Facebook, so I think that's kind of different.
Like many other Generation Y teachers, Andrew Luxton uses new technology extensively.
What we're trying to do is make learning as relevant as we can to the society and world in which we live in today. And ways in which we're doing that is mainly through embracing as much technology as we can, and specifically Web 2.0 technologies such as YouTube and Twitter, which we feel have strong educational uses and are things that our students are very adept at using.
One of the most popular sites for students is YouTube, and Andrew has been uploading revision video tips on writing exemplary history exam answers. Crucially, these need to address both sides of the argument.
That's where my friend WereRabbit comes in. When you first see him, it's quite obvious what he's about, but actually there's two sides to WereRabbit.
I told them that the way in which they needed to remember it was that they needed to look at one side first, then turn it round, look at the other side of the argument, and then finally decide, are they going to go for the first one or the second one?
You've just told me that, yeah, you could say that, or you could say that, but I'm going to go with that. But why aren't you going to go with that? So your conclusion must be, why have you gone for one side and not the other? Or why have you gone for that side and not that one? So 3 parts to your answer if you've got a decision: reasons you agree, reasons you disagree, and then your final conclusion saying why you've gone for one and why you haven't gone for the other. Good luck with your exams.
One of the things that Generation Y teachers are bringing to schools is this capacity to use the new technologies and Web 2.0 in a way that they can mix it with the traditional content of the curriculum in a way that makes it accessible and attractive to students, and particularly in ways that engage them. So you're bringing current concerns against, and that are part of their everyday lives, in alliance to the great subjects like history and science and mathematics. And that's the kind of engagement we're getting in schools now that will raise standards.
In some schools, head teachers are increasingly turning to their younger staff to participate more in the running of their schools. As a result, some teachers with less than 2 years' experience are now being given responsibilities unthinkable only a decade ago.
I started my teaching career in September. As I worked harder, I was given more responsibilities within the department, culminating in me being given the post of Head of History. So certainly I've had a very positive experience in my first year of teaching, and I think certainly the structure is there to progress very quickly.
Now, students appreciate having young teachers. They like the fact that we're dynamic in the classroom, and I think that senior leaders of the future are going to need to appreciate and recognise the fact that younger teachers are putting in this extra effort and want to see results for it in terms of career progression.
In the end, we want the best person for the job, really, and whether that person has a number of years' experience or a limited amount of experience, if they show the capacity to do the job and we can ensure we can put the training and support around them, then I don't think that should be a barrier.
Well, for me, I've had lots of opportunities to get involved in the way the school's run, even at senior leadership levels. So we were offered a kind of internship with the senior leadership team last year, myself and another Generation Y teacher. So I was definitely been supported in taking on responsibility and following my own ideas and developing my own sense of leadership in the school.
I'm 24 and I've just been teaching for 1 year before I took my position at this school as the head of RE. And I think that Generation Y, my generation of teachers coming through, is looking for a quicker progression up the teaching ladder. Teaching isn't necessarily the best paid job, and people that go into teaching have spent a long time at university, they've spent a long time getting the degree and then further years training afterwards, and they want to see that sort of recognised within their pay pack at the end of the month.
There's no question in my mind that whereas stage not age has tended to be working for students so that they are given appropriate opportunities simply by where they're at, not what age they happen to be, that the same principle should, and indeed in the best schools does apply amongst teachers. It's when you're ready for leadership that the opportunity comes. It's not wait your turn in a bug-in system until somebody decides you've been around long enough to deserve an opportunity.
We've seen how positively Generation Y students respond to the new technology, which gives them more participation and control over their learning. But students also now want that same level of control over how their school is run. Recognising this, school leaders at Dunraven in South London have embraced student voice.
Just sit over there.
10 other schools have been invited by Dunraven pupils to attend an Innovation Day, showcasing the responsibilities they now hold under a new power-sharing arrangement.
We are the voice. My name is Joel, and this is Kamal and Dominic. We are the leaders of the junior leadership team for Dunraven.
They were the ones that organised it. They made their PowerPoints, they welcomed people, they gave the workshop. You'll notice that I didn't stand up really at all to talk to the audience, and they made the decisions about what they should talk about. They were very keen really on getting other students at other schools to learn how to be a learning advisor so that they might take back that initiative to their own schools.
I wanted to let other students from other schools really know about what student voice we do at Dunraven and what student voice and student leadership other schools have.
We're here so we can develop our school council skills, so we can run a more effective school council.
Hopefully we're going to get some sort of training and student leadership stuff out of it and stuff like that.
One of the innovations at Dunraven is the creation of the Junior Leadership Team, which shadows the school's senior management and advises them on school policy.
So Joel is the principal of the junior leadership team, runs his team. Just like Mr. Boyle, who's the principal of the school, has his senior team and he runs the senior team.
Shadowing has a great value to me because I get to learn a lot from Mr. Boyle.
Thus far, I would say that I've learned from Joel that he's an incredibly powerful young person, and I don't think that I could have done what he's doing when I was 12 going on 13.
So yeah, do we want to move on now to the presentation? Yep. I've now got more confidence speaking in front of groups, and I know that I have to be more organised and I have to really have a mindset of what I need to do.
As part of the conference, the Learning Advisors team is running a workshop on how Dunraven does its class observations.
In your groups, we want you to discuss what you think the problems of being a learning advisor is and how you could fix them.
The teachers might not want to be criticised and they might take it the wrong way, so a solution for that would be having a meeting with willing teachers and just tell them that it's not criticism, it's just honest feedback. Sort of maybe having like a contract saying that, yeah, be truthful, not like biased or anything.
I think we should get a variety of teachers in order to understand different types of perspective, because even if the teachers are not willing to be criticised in a honest, in a good perspective way, I think they should be.
The key thing that we have to try and do in training them is to make them feel comfortable about giving feedback and to give their opinions. They are often a little bit shy, a little bit awkward, don't quite know how to say things, and you have to help train them to feel a little bit more confident.
How do we feed it back to the teacher we observed? Well, we've done it once by email, and once we went to the teacher.
Enough of the theory, now for the practice.
First statement, true or false? Put your hand up.
Nick Chapman's geography class is a bit different today. It's being observed by learning advisors Leo and David, who are taking copious notes on how they think he's doing.
On the board behind me is a mind map, which you know that I like a lot. I like using mind maps. I think they're a very good visual tool, and they're a good tool for learning and memory. Central image, please. Branches coming off the side, all right, and then thinking carefully about the sub-branches.
Many teachers found the idea of getting student feedback a little bit threatening. But all the early work shows that when you ask students to do it and you train them and prepare the ground, they give you feedback in a way that actually allows you to be better as a teacher, and therefore they get more out of the lesson. And so it's a win-win situation.
After the lesson, Mr. Chapman faces his critics, the learning advisors.
Well, what I first thought went well is that you projected your voice extremely well, so that everybody in the back would be able to hear you and understand you.
Okay, thank you.
I think that for the question, the true or false one, you can, like, for the people who get wrong, you can, like, explain why they're wrong.
I think it's slightly overran, which it wasn't a bad thing because it just made sure that students understood. But I think you should have been cut down a bit more because it wasted time in the lesson.
Okay, but I'll certainly take that on board. Thank you.
This kind of thing happens informally all the time. Most teachers will have conversations with their students to find out whether or not a particular exercise has worked or did they enjoy that part of the lesson, and if not, why not, and what could change. This just formalizes the process a bit so that students who aren't necessarily normally in that class can give a different perspective to that teacher.
I've seen students in years 8 and 9 handling how you give feedback to teachers in a way that I would have thought a few years ago would be only within the reach of, say, a 17 or 18-year-old. I think we've severely underestimated the responsibility, potential of many kids of 12 and 13.
I like the mind map idea because it makes the student actually thinks, even like from one step to another.
Have you used them yourself in a different subject? I'd be interested to hear if you've used them elsewhere.
Yeah, we've done in English about poetry and like different types of poetry.
I think it could get tedious while doing it because if you do it in lessons and then do it again and again, but it can get tedious.
Okay, so perhaps in terms of subjects leaders, so head of geography, head of English, knowing when they're doing certain strategies so that we can coordinate, that we're not all suddenly doing mind mapping in 1 week. I thought a useful bit of advice that I was given was regarding the mind mapping, where the student mentioned about if lots of teachers were using the same strategy, it could become boring, and I thought that that was a well-made point.
You can start with student voice in a way that's not terribly threatening, that students talk about what makes a good lesson or what they'd like to see improved in their school, to the point where we have students evaluating lessons and giving feedback to teachers, working with them to co-construct lessons and to improve teaching and learning, to assume leadership roles in the school that were unthought of 5 years ago.
Ringwood School in Hampshire has taken many of David Hargreaves' ideas, especially those concerning student voice, and put them into practice. They're keen to show off the results to other schools.
Hello, and we're back, and as I'm sure you all know, it's Innovation Day today.
Young people do want to achieve, they do want to do well, but they do want to be actively involved in their learning, and they want to understand why they're doing things.
I know that you're going to have a really special day finding out a little bit more about student voice at Ringwood. I think I would have to say that they are very much leading the way of learning at Ringwood, and I've been delighted with the progress that our students have made over the last 12 months to 2 years. The new system that they've come up with, that they're going to showcase and tell you a little bit about today, I think hopefully will sort of set the context for where we are as a school and the way in which our young people are helping to shape the future of their school.
We had a student council for years, but it really wasn't working. It was a traditional school council with tutor reps, year reps and school reps. We talked a lot, but we really didn't discuss what was important.
Innovation at Ringwood has included doing away with the talking shop known as the School Council. Based largely on the ideas of David Hargreaves, the students replaced the School Council with a strategy group and steering groups.
The strategy group is like the main brain of everything. It controls everything, what goes out into the students and how it does and how it comes in. Then we have the steering groups, which are the ways we get out messages out to the main school.
These oversee and coordinate the work of other committees. Overall, almost a third of the school sits on one committee or another.
Well, I'm the environment tutor rep, and I basically give feedback from anything that's going on within the school, anything to do with the environment basically. So I check my emails and I basically feed back to the tutor group.
I think it's a massive improvement because already you can see the changes within the school that have come about. We're no longer talking about sort of like small issues that like uniform always cropped up and everyone was like, oh, we don't want homework, but now we've moved on to proper issues within school that students can really see a change with. One example is we set up a new policy about mobile technology within school. And so students now have access, they can use their phones at lunch and at break, and they can use their iPods if they have permission from the teachers, and so they can see changes within school that benefit them.
Steering and strategy meetings tend to be held before school.
Morning everyone, welcome to June's strategy group meeting.
They're chaired by the head boy and girl, with teachers attending as observers.
Could you just give us a brief update on how lesson observations are going, or a quick description of what the training involved?
It's been really interesting actually. A small group of us have been going in and being trained by Miss Dorr. We didn't participate, we sat at the back and we had some forms and stuff that we had to fill in as if it was like a real sort of interview for teachers.
Later that day, during the innovation workshop, visitor Dermot Murphy and his student voice team from Chestwood Sports College want to hear more about lesson evaluation.
Has there been any resistance from any other from teachers saying no, I don't want to be observed?
Some teachers did, but generally I think a lot of the teachers were pleased that we were doing the lessons observations.
Do you find that there's like much has come out of doing your observations? Like, are teachers willing to listen to your criticism?
Yeah, definitely. You know, none of the teachers were really funny about us having our say. You know, we're all really cooperative and communicative.
I think what we've learned from the work on student voice is that if you give students opportunities to work as a partner with teacher, to take some of the control and the responsibility and share it with the staff, actually their engagement rises. Then the boundaries are understood on both sides, and life for both teacher and student gets very much better.
So we've got Dermot Murphy here from Chestwood Sports College. He's visiting the school today. What have you learned today then, Dermot?
I've learnt how strong your student voice is here at Ringwood, but above all, we've been learning about how students are observing lessons, feeding that back to their teachers so that they're enhancing their learning, and how students are getting involved in every single aspect of life here at Ringwood.
Good, good. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
While some students want their voice heard on the radio, others may have the sort of voice that most head teachers might be tempted to silence.
There's always a danger in a school that the leadership you cultivate amongst the students is with the students that the teachers feel most comfortable with, who are likely to cause the least trouble. And in a sense, you're probably right to start with some of those students because the risks are lower. But you have to take into account that you're not really going to develop student voice and leadership unless the seriously disengaged kids are also brought in. Because the interesting thing in the schools that have done this is they're often very powerful school leaders in potential.
Recognising potential in Generation Y, be it through student voice or by promoting talented young teachers, will help schools teach pupils used to participating rather than consuming.
One of the things that I've found is I never cease to be amazed by the quality of our young people, and the more you empower them to lead learning, the more some extraordinarily special things begin to happen in the school.
I think at the moment what we're trying to do is, rather than just tweak some things so that we're doing them in essentially the same way we've always done them, a case of same horse, different jockey, we're trying to totally transform the way in which we do things. So it's not just a simple update, but it's doing things in a whole new way.
We've got to look to new forms of trust and collaboration and partnership that we wouldn't have dreamed of in the past. But once we hold our breath, take the leap and make that trustful new relationship, wow, the world's the limit.